Did you know Kang the Conqueror, aka Jonathan Majors, was recently booked on charges of assault, harassment, and strangulation? And that Ezra Miller, aka DC's The Flash, was arrested a few months ago on burglary charges? It seems like some actors can't help but get into trouble with the law. So I figured I'd take a closer look at some famous actors who went to jail or were arrested. Jonathan Majors was arrested Saturday, March 25th for a litany of pretty terrible crimes. And while we obviously operate on the time-tested innocent until proven guilty mantra, the accusations are still pretty gnarly. He's being charged with harassment, assault, and strangulation, not exactly misdemeanors. It's a huge blow to what seemed like the quickest and hottest career path for an actor in recent years. I mean, it seems like almost overnight, Majors went from a talented but unknown actor to like the biggest thing in Hollywood. Creed 3, Loki, Quantumania, Army commercials. The man has shot up to the A-list in a seriously fast way, and with good reason. He's hella captivating on screen. But this recent arrest might just be putting all of that to a halt, because certain types of arrests are easier to sort of brush under the rug, and stars have been known to quickly bounce back, but domestic violence charges, that's a tougher one for fans to be okay with, you know? Now, Majors' lawyer has publicly said that there's video evidence that exonerates him, so maybe this won't proceed any further than a little bad press, and Majors will continue his path upwards. But if he's convicted of these crimes, things could get drastically different for this up-and-coming star. Things haven't been going much better for Ezra Miller, who's playing the Flash in an upcoming movie. They've also been having issues with the law of late. Miller, who uses they/them pronouns, was arrested in Vermont in late 2022 for burglary charges. Miller entered a house near where they were staying and stole some bottles of booze. They were arrested for burglary and trespassing, but Miller's lawyer claimed the house belonged to an old friend of Miller's and that it was an accepted thing that Miller was allowed to borrow booze if necessary. But the police didn't see it that way and still arrested them. Most of the charges were eventually dropped after a plea bargain of trespassing was agreed upon. Of course, if you've been following the ups and downs of Miller's exploits, you know that this was only the most recent of many troubling issues they've been involved in. Perhaps most notable were accusations of grooming a minor, put forth by the parents of a girl named Tokata Iron Eyes. They accused Miller of, quote, psychologically manipulating, physically intimidating, and endangering the safety and welfare of their daughter. That issue appears to be unresolved so far, but I should also note that Miller sought out psychiatric help in 2022 to deal with some pretty heavy issues. According to an article in Vanity Fair, Miller has at different times claimed to be the devil, Jesus, and the next Messiah. Although TBH, I think even if someone is the next Messiah, leave kids alone and don't steal stuff. But hey, maybe that's just me. I also wonder if maybe there's something about being a superhero or supervillain that makes somebody a little more prone to violence? Because Antony Starr, one of the leads of the hit Amazon Prime show The Boys, was arrested for assault in March of 2022 in Spain. Apparently, he forgot in the moment that he's not actually Homelander, his superhero alter ego. Because while Homelander can get away with pretty much anything, Antony, actor from New Zealand, most definitely cannot. Starr was in Costa Blanca at a pub when he got into it with a local chef. Apparently, Antony had beef with the chef named Bathuel Araujo and got violent. Araujo claimed Antony, who was quite inebriated, punched him in the face twice, which would have been a bad look already, but Starr upped the ante when he also smashed a glass on Araujo's face. Araujo ended up needing 4 stitches from the glass. When I originally heard about the arrest, I was like, well, there goes season 4 of The Boys, but Starr managed to get off relatively scot-free. He spent a couple nights in a local Spanish jail and then got a 12-month suspended sentence. He also had to pay almost $5,500 to Araujo, though I imagine that amount gets covered by like an afternoon of work on a mega-hit Amazon show. So it looks like more of the bloody and hilarious superhero show is still to come. Also still to come, you hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. Just saying. Speaking of boys will be boys moments, Barry Keoghan recently went from being 1/10 of a fairly mediocre Marvel movie, apologies to fans of the Eternals, to being an Oscar nominee. His turn in The Banshees of Inisherin wowed audiences, catapulting him to a major name in the biz. But in April of 2022, Barry was arrested on the north side of Dublin. Fortunately, it wasn't anything as bad as what Jonathan Majors was charged with. Barry was brought to the local police station after he'd been acting, well, intoxicated on the balcony of an apartment building. and while we don't know exactly whose balcony it was apparently located close to where one of Barry's relatives lives. So best guess, maybe he was getting drunk with some family members and decided to do a little wandering and being loud? Either way, the Garda, the Irish police, released him pretty much immediately after they brought him to the station. Sounds like it was a case of just needing to shut up for a bit and get some sleep. And while Vince Vaughn's mugshot from his arrest for assault in 2001 looks like he needs some serious sleep, his mugshot from 2018 is surprisingly festive. So I guess he's learning from his mistakes? I don't know. It's probably because his 2018 arrest was a DUI, which is not nearly as bad as being arrested for assault. That's what the star of Wedding Crashers, Old School, and more was picked up for in 2001. The DUI happened after he left an airport bar in California after spending a few hours there and having a couple too many. But the situation in 2001 was a lot more serious. He was filming the movie Domestic Disturbance in Wilmington, North Carolina. He and some folks from the shoot were hanging at a bar called the Firefly one night after filming. But rather than being excited to have some movie stars in their local bar, some of the regulars decided that wasn't their particular cup of tea, or shot of whiskey, or whatever. So they started insulting Vaughn and his buddies, and things got a little heated. Then Vaughn told one person to step outside with him, which, as we all know, means a little fisticuffs is on the way. But amazingly, it didn't come to that yet. Vaughn used his gift of gab to talk calmly to the guy, and they ended up shaking hands. Vince's co-star, Steve Buscemi, came out to see what was going on, and a completely different guy suddenly attacked him with a knife. Buscemi got slashed on his neck and was rushed to the emergency room. So naturally, Vince tried to come to his friend's aid and got in a fight doing it. So he ended up getting arrested for assault. Eventually, the charges were dropped as long as Vaughn agreed to not go to bars in Wilmington ever again. So much for doing the right thing. And speaking of doing the right thing, Jane Fonda has actually been arrested multiple times over the course of her life, and it's always been for much more positive reasons. Most recently, she was arrested in 2019 trying to advocate for stronger climate change policies. While it was largely like a ceremonial type of arrest, and she didn't spend time behind bars, it was actually the 5th time she'd been arrested in her life. Besides being a legendary actress and a fitness guru, Jane has always been a passionate protester. In the 1960s, she was an activist for the civil rights movement and a fierce opponent of the Vietnam War. She was famously arrested in 1970 after returning from Canada because of bags of pills found in her bag. Of course, the big problem with that was the pills were legit vitamins. When they arrested her, the police admitted they had done it because the Nixon White House had ordered them to. Yikes. Speaking of someone with a lot of arrests on his rap sheet, Shia LaBeouf is a longtime member of the Actors Gone Wild community. In 2022, his former GF, FKA Twigs, sued him for sexual battery and relentless abuse. That case will apparently go to trial in later 2023, so it's unclear whether or not Shia will serve jail time. In 2018, he was arrested in Savannah, Georgia, while he was there filming The Peanut Butter Falcon. Like a lot of his arrests, it involved him having too much to drink and getting disorderly and belligerent. During his arrest in Georgia, he apparently also spewed out a tirade of insults against the arresting officers, some racist slurs, and more. He got booked that night for obstruction, public drunkenness, and disorderly conduct. Okay, I'm gonna go check to make sure no actors have been arrested in the time it took me to talk about these actors being arrested. You never know, right? Have any other wild stories of actors heading to jail or being arrested? Pop them in the comments section.